Requesting connection. Established. Encrypted. We're live. The show you've been asking for. Advice, technology, and community. Linux first, all others second. This is Ask Noah.
Live from Speak Technologies, the Ask Noah show starts right now. This is the show where we came to do all the things on Linux they said couldn't be done and take your questions on how to do the same. The phone lines are open this hour. To be a part of the program, it's a free call, 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 1-855-450-6624, or send an email to live@asknoahshow.com. My name is Noah Chalai. I am your host. Delighted to be here with you this hour as another episode of the Ask Noah show kicks off this hour. Big show tonight, obviously. Huge show. And we're going to give you an update on how that project went, the ISP project, where we essentially set up internet across a small city in Minnesota. An update is coming on that. But to kick off the hour, I wanted to open with what I think is a rather amusing story I stumbled on. Now, from time to time, dating all the way back to the Linux Action Show days, we have talked about where Linux succeeds. We're not afraid of admitting where Linux doesn't succeed, but we like to look at success stories. And one of the things that sort of doomed LAS was the fact that Linux started to succeed everywhere. So it just became the de facto standard in so many places. And I just noticed now that we're having some sort of an issue with our phone system. So if you are trying to call,
you have successfully.
Nope, not that one. Not that button. What does this button do? This is live radio. I feel like that's a dial tone. That's definitely a dial tone. I apologize. I feel badly about this. So anyway, I stumbled on an internet post on Reddit, and it is the top trending post on r/Linux. And here is the headline. You ready for this?
You have successfully.
There we go. Girlfriend uses Linux and FOSS for camming. I gave my girlfriend a Logitech Brio for her birthday and installed pop_OS ! And set her up with OBS so she can stream herself to the world. She uses Flowblade to edit her commissions. Everything works. I couldn't be more proud of her. I never have to play tech support. The only problem I found is the performance of Brio's drivers on the Linux UVC. So that's essentially that is like the Linux equivalent of the what's the Windows media? It's like a general Linux video driver, so you can use any device and it all appears as the exact same. She doesn't get 4K output, which is fine, because who streams a cam girl at 4K? And I think they prefer the higher frame rates at 60 frames per second at 1080p. But the most significant focus hunting issues is the biggest pain. And so essentially, he is talking about how Linux has succeeded in this environment. Linux has succeeded in the in the camgirl world. So who am I to judge, right? I mean, that's a success. A success is something to be praised, and we're happy for them. So congratulations to tamer of horses on your quest with your girlfriend for Linux. We're happy for you, and glad Linux can succeed where Windows will fail, because as we all know, nothing is worse than when you're on those kinds of sites and your computer locks up, right? I'm not even sure exactly where to go with that. I just struck me as pretty funny. Again, I'm not sure if our phones are working or not working or what's going on. That Reddit post actually got locked. Chat room is pointing out, Emacs points out in the chat room that that thread actually got locked. Do we have phones? I can't tell if we have phones. I'll tell you what we're gonna do. This would be a great week. If you are, if you're listening to the stream, you want to join us, you want to be a part of the conversation. Why don't you head over to mumble.jupiterbroadcasting.org. We've got our interactive Mumble room there. It's a fantastic way for you to add your voice to the conversation and be heard. I'm going to connect here and jump over into the on-air channel. If I see anybody there, I will. I'll jump in. And in the meantime, hopefully we can see if we can get our phones fixed. I'm not sure what's going on. They seem to be completely locked up. So that sucks for a call-in show. But look at that, man. Holy cow, you guys. I make the announcement and all of a sudden 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people jump in there. Hey guys, how's Mumble Room doing?
Mumble is fine, thanks.
That's awesome. I appreciate you guys. I apologize that there seems to be I mean, I guess we don't always get to you guys. I mean, I guess is the most blunt way to put it, right?
Well, I'm the gatekeeper, so if there's someone in the join queue, I put him on the show, and then I give you a notice that there's someone in there.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Like we did last week, you see. But last week, unfortunately, you did not have the time, and he had to go. Maybe next time it works better.
Yeah, I do appreciate that, and a huge thanks to Mitfree and all of those guys that participate in the Mumble administration. That's super helpful. We really appreciate it. So thank you very much, guys, for everything that you guys do. It doesn't go unnoticed, and we definitely appreciate you. Again, 1-850.
Okay, I just have one now.
Yeah, sure.
Queue, so I will be away.
Fantastic. I'll jump down here to restricted casting, but I'll keep you by my side. I'm hearing in my ear that we have the phones fixed, so you can now join the conversation. Yeah, I am not going to read what you said, XMN, but it's in the chat room if you want to join the video room. I'm not sure. I think that's a compliment. But I'm told that we have the phones fixed, so you can join the conversation that way, 1-855-450-NO. It's 855-450-6624. The email live at AskNoahShow.com. Make your voice heard, become a part of the program. So, KDE.org, there is a new release of Plasma 5.14 rather. Plasma's KDE lightweight and full-featured Linux desktop. For the last 3 months, we have been adding new features, fixing bugs, and now we invite you to install Plasma 5.14. A lot of work has gone into improving Discover, Plasma Software Manager, and among other things, we have added a firmware update feature and many other subtle user interfaces improvements to give it a smoother feel. We have also rewritten many effects in our window manager, Kwin, and have improved slicker animations in your workday. Other improvements we have made include a new display configuration widget, which is useful when giving presentations. Browse the full Plasma 5.14 changelog to find more about the tweaks and bug fixes featured in this release. Of course, we'll have a link for you for that in the chat in the show notes, which you can get at podcast.asknoahshow.com. So one of the things that I thought was really cool, as I was kind of messing around with this new screen layout thing, essentially it gives you for lack of a better way to put this, it gives you what Unity has had for years and that I really missed about it. And when you plug in an external display device, it tells you, do you want to mirror the display? And then it shows, a copy of 2 little squares on 2 different displays. Do you want to shut off the laptop display and just use the external display? Do you want to just use the laptop display and shut off the external display? Not sure why you'd connect an external display if you want to do that. Or do you want to span? And they're represented as graphical features. Now, the only thing left to add to this screen layout system is the ability to drag a monitor from one place to the other, which, as far as I'm aware, let's see, because I have it installed here, which is, as far as I'm aware, still does not actually exist. So it's weird how it does this. So in KDE, in order to mirror the displays, it actually stacks one on top of the other. And I still say Unity had the best multi-monitor display system ever. But so in addition to the display, they also have a new audio widget, and it now features a built-in speaker test feature, which is moved from the phone on settings. The network widget now works with SSH VPN tunnels again, which those are the kind of things that I look at and I'm like, really? That was an issue that we let that we let slide. The lock screen now handles user switching for better usability and security. So this is I was playing on my laptop. I don't currently have KDE on our kitchen computer. Yes, I have a computer in my kitchen that our entire family uses. One of the reasons that I hadn't switched to KDE is one of the things I still liked about Unity was 2 users could be simultaneously logged in, and you could just click on that user. It would restore that session or drop that session. And we actually use that all the time. And so when I started to play with 5.14, as I was looking through the feature list, this is cool. I think this really makes KDE a lot more usable in a lot of other places. Right now at the studio here, we're still using all Unity machines, except our main broadcast machine is running CentOS because it has to be rock solid, and as only Red Hat can deliver. By the way, speaking of Red Hat, huge thanks and shout out to Steve Ovens and the crew at Red Hat that were rocking Ask Noah swag and handing it out at Ohio Linux Fest. So if you were at Ohio Linux Fest and you attended one of Steve's talks, then my understanding is that you got some Ask Noah swag. You got some t-shirts and some lanyards and some other stuff that Steve was kind enough to bring out there and hand out. And so huge thanks to him and obviously the entire team at Red Hat for their continued support of the program and for always being willing to come on the air and answer questions. We sure do appreciate it, and thanks for giving us a presence at a conference we weren't able to attend. 1-855-450-NOAH. It's 855-450-6624. You're on Ask Noah. Hey, Tony, welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hi, Noah. Just wanted to ask a question. I know you're mainly Linux-focused, but I've been reading a lot about FreeBSD, and I kind of wanted to get that's what is one of two questions, your take on why use one or the other? Like, I know BSD has ZFS and maybe a better network stack from what I read, but kind of wanted to get your take and if you use it in certain situations.
Yeah, it's a great question, Tony. The answer to the first answer to the question is, do I use it? Yes, I do. I guess I would challenge the better network stack portion of that, but everything else is absolutely true. ZFS is fantastic. Here, let's start with this. The first reason that a lot of people use BSD, and the reason that if I was to switch over to BSD full time, this would probably be the reason I would do so. The licensing is different than that of Linux. So the license for Linux basically said, and I'm loosely translating here, so you license nuts, stay off me, but the license loosely translates to, you can use whatever you want to use, but anything that you contribute has to allow everybody else to use the things that you contribute so that we all can use it. And it basically forces everything to stay, in essence, open source. With BSD, they have a much more liberal license. The license for a BSD license is, and again, loosely translating here, you can basically do whatever you want with it. If you want to take whatever we've created and roll your own product, add a bunch of really cool new features, and then not let us use any of those new cool features, you can do so, because that, we don't care. The problem I have with that license is that it ensures, basically, that FreeBSD will never, ever, ever truly get ahead. Because if it was ever going, anytime a company like Apple, for example, wants to fork their system and create Darwin, for example, and then make a bunch of really cool innovations to it, they don't have to give that back to the BSD community. And so you basically assure that everybody will always take the best from you, and there's absolutely no resistance in not giving back. So that's why philosophically I object with their license structure. As far as usability, I'll tell you why I don't use it, and then I tell you where the exceptions are. The reason I'm not a full-time FreeBSD user, despite the fake episode that Alan and I did, is because there's nothing that works in BSD that doesn't work on Linux, and most of the stuff that works on BSD works because of Linux. The notable exception to that is ZFS. There is no better file system on the face of the planet. There is no more streamlined file system on the face of the planet, and if you have storage needs that are at all critical of any kind, you should use nothing other than ZFS on BSD, because despite what all of the folks who are working very hard and tirelessly to port ZFS to Linux will tell you, ZFS is still not as good on Linux as it is on BSD. And I think I can back that statement up pretty darn well. Anytime we put in a file server, it's FreeNAS. And if there is a complicated network system where we are trying to repurpose old machines to be routers, a lot of times we'll use pfSense. So in those appliance-like based instances, both in FreeNAS or in pfSense, BSD is fantastic. And so I would use it for that. The other thing that I am warming up to is Project Triton. And we have had JT Pennington on the program to talk about Project Titan. Essentially, the BSD guys have done a lot of really amazing work on their desktop environment, which is Lumina. And they went from a hodgepodge, use whatever you want, do kind of whatever you want, and here's the server thing, and here's this, to we want to really hone in on the desktop. We want to make an amazing desktop experience. And the first part of making an amazing desktop experience is making a window manager desktop environment that is something that rivals KDE or GNOME or Mate or whatever. And I think they've done it with Lumina. I've played with it a little bit. For a while, I actually installed it on a spare laptop just to kind of goof around with it. I still think there are some shortcomings in BSD, but I absolutely think that they definitely have something in the way of it, kind of in an Apple-esque way, if I'm being honest with you. Because, Tony, what it does is it really starts to feel to me like you only have one choice, but because you only have one choice, it's all hands on deck. Everybody is working on the same problems and in a cohesive manner and moving the football down the field rather than, well, I want to do it this way and I want to do it that way and I think we should do this and I want to do this and I want to make, documentation, not, all that kind of thing. You have everybody working cohesively and together. And I think it really shows with the amount of traction they've made in the short time that the Lumina desktop has been about. As far as using it over Windows or Mac, Mac is much as I like to hate on Mac, the truth is it's a little bit harder to make technically sound arguments against the Mac. As far as Windows, any machine, essentially, if I needed it to run more than a week at a time, I would definitely want it to run. I'd definitely choose BSD over Windows, and I'll just find a way to make BSD work, even if it means doing everything in the web browser. Does that answer your first question?
Absolutely, it definitely does, and I appreciate it. The next one is definitely much easier, I promise.
Okay. I think that was too bad.
At our company here, we share passwords for our different customers. We're a telecommunications company, and unfortunately, right now we do it with an Excel spreadsheet that we share on Google Docs or on Google Sheets.
Sure.
I'd like to move to something a little bit better, something preferably that would be encrypted, and have some sort of revision control. I looked at KeyPass, and I know with KeyPass I can host the file, like the database file, and it can be multiple people reading and writing at the same time. I found some applications on Android that we can use. But I want to know what you guys use in your office, and if you are using something like KeyPass, how are you guys getting everybody to be able to connect to that database without using something like Google Drive or WebDAV or like how do you guys do it? Sure.
So there's a couple of answers to that question. The first answer is, do we use KeyPass? The answer to that question is yes. We have a shared KeyPass database file. Now, I question the information you've come across that says that it can multiple reads and multiple writes at the same time. I say that because in our environment, every time if somebody leaves KeyPass open and somebody else opens it, it gives them a message that says, somebody else is writing to this right now. Do you want to open the database in a read-only form? And we usually just click yes, and then you get what you want out of there or whatever. Now, the answer to how we're syncing that file around, you certainly could use something like Google Drive or Dropbox, but we have gone to a more secure solution, and we are using a program called C-File. And what C-File does is essentially it's an open source Dropbox replacement. But the thing that we like about C-File is, one, it's completely open source. Two, it's incredibly secure because it's layers of security. It's not just one. So, for example, the data inside of the client itself is encrypted, so it's sending encrypted data. But the maintainer of the project doesn't quite trust his ability to implement encryption or trust the encryption that he wrote. So on top of that, we have set it up with HTTPS. So you've got encrypted data going through an encrypted tunnel, going to a server that has encryption at rest. So there's like encryption all over the place. And so it makes for a very, very secure file syncing system. It means that we don't even have access to our own customers' data, and that's what we want. To answer your question, the problem with that system, the problem with the cfile/KeyPass system, one is that it's a scalable thing, right? There's only so many people that can access it at the same time. So that's problem one. But the second problem that we have run into, or that makes it inconvenient, is when you're working on a client, there's usually not just one password, right? There's usually numerous passwords for numerous different things. And the problem is, if we were to create a individual entry for every single client, I don't know how many hundreds of clients we have, finding a given password for a given account, like I could search, I'm trying to think of a good example, Amazon, for example. A lot of our customers have Amazon accounts, and we order stuff on their Amazon account. My gosh, if we had to, every time I searched Amazon, I had to go through 300 entries of Amazon accounts to find the account that goes to our business. And it's not always necessarily named with their business name, right? Sometimes they use their personal, Gmail, which have odd and funny things. So for that reason, what we have gone to doing, a lot of times, if there's simple password, oh my gosh, I'm getting a phone call. What we've gone to doing for more simpler accounts, or for just kind of a go-to thing, we use OS Ticket. And our OS Ticket instance is also encrypted, and so it's a safe place to store customer data in. And so what we'll do oftentimes is, inside of the customer profile, we'll actually put all of the accounts, or all of the passwords and stuff like that. And then you can actually create custom forms in OS Ticket. So for example, we do a lot of hospitality management. And so we just have a form for the PMS provider, and that has the, authentication information for the PMS provider. And every hotel has a phone system. So we have the authentication system for the phone system. And obviously then we have our stuff, like our routers and switches and stuff like that. And so those username and passwords are stored there. If they have any servers, we have a form for that. And that's a really quick way, because we can pull up the client. Now we know we're just looking for their account information, and then at a glance we can see they have 8 servers and 4 routers and 13 switches and whatever, and I can just click on those things and it shows me the information.
All right.
So if I was...
that pretty much answers the question.
Yeah, thanks for the call. So if I'm a telecommunications company, I guess the TLDR of that question is I'd be looking at an OS Ticket installation, because not only will it help you with your password storage, but it might be a really cool way for you to handle work orders too if you decide to do that. 1-855-450-NOAH, 855-450-6624, the email live at AskNoahShow.com. Trey calls from Virginia. Hey, Trey, welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hi. So I'd like a little help with my home-built NAS, and then I also have a suggestion for self.
You bet.
So my NAS is it's embedded server board. It's based on Xeon D, and it's been great running Ubuntu 16.04. And I wanted to expand my storage. The storage is based on ZFS, and also upgrade to 18.04. But I wanted to install the server onto an M.2 drive, and it didn't seem to work during the installation. And I decided that the best way to go get around that is to do a BIOS update. And that would also fix some Spectre bugs and whatnot. I downloaded the stuff from the BIOS from it's a Supermicro board, so I got that.
Okay.
And just try to put it on a USB drive and boot with that plugged in, and I couldn't get that to work. Since it's a proper server kind of thing, it has the whole BMC chip. I think that might be the best way to go, but I've never really worked inside of a server room, so I don't know how to turn that on and connect to it. And what do you suggest?
Okay. So sorry, I feel like I was trying to scribble down information as fast as I could, but so give me the last part of that again. Where are you getting hung up?
I think the best maybe to get that BIOS updated is to go through the IPMI function.
Oh, okay, I see. So how do you set up IPMI is essentially what you're getting at.
And how do I connect to it and whatever? Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so what IPMI is, for those of you who don't know, is a console level access to a server over a network. So it's kind of like hooking an IP KVM up to a server and then accessing it in a web browser. So if you're familiar with Dell has something very, very similar built into their iDRAC, I think is what they call it, built into their server system. IPMI is the Supermicro equivalent of it. So first thing to know about IPMI is it works in Java. So you have to have Java installed on Linux. Now the easiest way, the thing that I use when I use IPMI is actually called Java. It's not actually called Java. It's not the regular JRE. It's I'll have to find it. There's another plugin that you can use that I found works much better. And of course now I can't find that plugin. I can't think of what it's called off the top of my head. But I'll have a link for you in the show notes. Maybe
Jibber
Java plugin. Yeah, I'll have to find it and put. I can't think of it. Maybe the chat room will help me out. There's another plugin that you use. Iced-T. There it is. It's called Iced-T. And Java Iced-T, of course. I get the joke now. If you install Iced-T, that is a plugin that will work much better for that IPMI interface because it doesn't give you all the security warnings and errors and all that junk. As far as how to actually set it up, on the back of the Supermicro board, you have two network interfaces. One is assigned to the IPMI interface. One is assigned to your host operating system. You can change that inside of the BIOS. So you can change both if you wanted to, for some strange reason, to be assigned to the IPMI. You could change both to be assigned to the host operating system, or by default, one will be the host operating system, one will be the IPMI interface. Inside of the BIOS, again, you can set this statically, but the default will be for IPMI to get an IP address from DHCP. So when you plug your server into the network, it will automatically pull an IPMI. The IPMI will pull a DHCP address, and your regular network card will pull a DHCP address. Now, word of caution. If this is connected to the internet, if you're going to put this out on the internet, you want to keep your IPMI interface closed off. So you don't want your IPMI live on the internet. You want to have to VPN into a network and then connect to IPMI. It's not really designed with security, protecting your security from a WAN perspective. You can do it. There are people that do it. So it's not like, it's not the end of the world, but I wouldn't recommend it. Once that IPMI interface gets a DHCP address, and of course you can go into the BIOS and set it statically if you'd like to, you would log into your router and find out what the IP address is that it's pulling, and just simply paste that into your web browser. And as long as you have that Iced-T plugin installed, IPMI is going to launch. It's going to prompt you with a password.
It's a browser plugin?
Yes, Iced-T is the browser plugin.
Okay.
So you're gonna plug that, you're gonna launch that, and what's gonna happen is it's gonna prompt you for a password. Now that can be reset again inside of the BIOS, and once you authenticate into IPMI, you're essentially going to be looking at it's basically a VNC session right into your server, except the difference is instead of VNC normally being the operating system, you get to do everything up to modifying the BIOS over the web browser.
Okay.
So the advantage to that is, Trey, is that you are able to you're able to access console level access to your server from anywhere in the world as long as you got an internet connection. So Alan Jude, for example, he uses the heck out of IPMI because he has servers all over the world, and they're bare metal servers, and he doesn't have anybody there to set them up. And so when he rents a server, one of his conditions is that they have to set IPMI up for him, and then he VPNs into wherever he's hosting its network, fires up IPMI, and then he can install his operating system from scratch. From Canada, even if the server is across the world. And him and I got a front row seat. He bought a new server because they were opening up a new data center somewhere in like Germany or something like that. And while him and I were at JB1, I actually got to watch him reinstall CentOS over IPMI. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I knew that that's how they did it in the real server world, but didn't know how to get started. Okay, so on to the self bit.
Okay.
I've been twice, and I was impressed how many children there are there.
Yes.
And I also thought the fiber track was a really neat idea. What if there was another track that appeal to children or big children. And it was more hands-on kind of stuff, Raspberry Pi kind of setups and robot builds and that kind of thing.
So I'll tell you a little story. I took my whole family to Self this year and last year. And my son has really, really, really gotten into computers. Not from my pushing. He just decided that was just something he wanted to do. And he started with Minecraft, and then it got into he wanted to host his own Minecraft server. And then from Minecraft commands, he realized he needed to learn some basic Linux commands to be able to administrate his server. And then from there, it just kind of snowballed, and he got just kind of took off with it. He's 8 years old, for the record. And the thing that he does is he's recently gotten to hosting a web server, and so he makes his little web page and he kind of has a blog style thing, and he updates his web page, and it's just basically he just updates a text file that has some very basic HTML in it that he picked up, and he just has fun with it, and I think it's really cool. But he calls every command that he executes in Linux, he calls them sudos, because, from the time he was 4 or 5 years old, when he started to first, when he would learn how to install Minecraft, the command started with sudo. So everything started with sudo, so he just calls them sudos, and I haven't really bothered to correct him. So he goes to Self, and he walks up to Simon Quigley, who's actually filling in his call screener tonight. And I said, this is Simon, and Simon works for Daddy, and he does, he does development, so he makes things on Linux. And he goes, does he make sudos? And I said, I don't know if he makes sudos, but he makes things that work in sudos. He goes, so he knows a lot about sudos? I said, yeah, he knows a lot about sudos. So he goes up to Simon and he goes, Simon, teach me sudos. So Simon very kindly and generously spent a couple hours with him and was teaching him newer commands. I think that's where he actually learned Vim, was from Simon, and they were going through and he had a grand old time. The next day at Self, it wasn't Jason Plum, it was Jim... What's Jim's last name? Salter was giving a command on like 30 basic Linux commands you should know. And he comes running, and I was on air at the time. He comes running down the hallway. Dad, there's a whole class on sudos. Can I go? And I said, yeah, knock yourself out. Go. And he was super disappointed because obviously the vernacular was not written for 8-year-olds. And the descriptions were not written for 8-year-olds. And frankly, probably 28 of the 30 commands were not applicable to 8-year-olds. And after that, I actually approached JT Pennington, who is one of the lead people at Self, and said, I would like to do a kids track next year. I would like to see if there's a spare room that we could set up and just give some hands-on presentation, maybe with some Raspberry Pis or something like that, on getting maybe a Minecraft server up and running, and then having the kids play Minecraft, or maybe, some of the things that my kids like to do. And he thought it was a great idea. The question, there are 2 problems, well, there are 3 problems with it. The first problem is real estate is a premium at Self, and so finding a physical space to allocate to the kids might be a little difficult, maybe, and so we're not exactly sure how to tackle that. The second issue is I am busier than a chicken with its head cut off during Self, and so to try to set aside enough time to do that might be difficult. So it'd be great if there was somebody like yourself or somebody else that wanted to kind of help out with the children's track. And then the third thing is, I agree with you that there are a lot more kids that come to Self than probably some of the other Linux fests. But I question if there are enough kids all present at the same time that we could actually put them into a room and have them do something together. But I could be wrong. One of the best interviews I think I ever did was with a small child who was doing like incredible things on Linux. And I see him every year, time to time at Self. I'm not sure if his parents want his name out there or not. And then, yeah, obviously I bring my kids because I think it's a great experience, but that's a really long-winded answer to your question.
All right. Well, I have 6 and 7-year-olds, so I'm going to make it their science fair project to come up with something that might be that kind of hands-on build thing.
Yeah, do me a favor, Trey. If you'd send an email,
I'll make us.
Yeah, if you could
submit it to as a talk.
Yeah, please. And actually, if you would send me an email, live@asknoahshow.com. Jeremy picks all of the talks blindly, so there's nothing there's no way I can say like, oh, I'll talk to him for you. And I'm sure if I went to him and said, hey, Jeremy, this is what we'd like to do, and would you support it? I'm sure he would go, yep, that sounds like a great idea. The problem is there's no way for him to even do it because the way that the talk submission is set up, it strips out all of the identifying information when he picks them. So there's absolutely no way for him to say, yeah, I'll make sure that talk gets guaranteed. There's no way for him to do it.
Well, that's fine.
But if
they do it a kids track, then I'll submit it, and may the best submissions win.
Right. But what I was going to say was, if you're okay with it, if you send me an email live at asknoahshow.com, what I'll do is I'll take your contact information down, and even if they decide they can't do a full-on official kids track, maybe you and I can plan something Friday night or Saturday night during one of the one of the parties or whatever. Maybe while one of the other rooms isn't being used, maybe it wouldn't be an official thing. Maybe you and I could just, stealthily steal a projector and just get the word out and say, hey, we're going to be hanging out with kids this particular night, so if you want to join, you can do that.
Super. Good idea.
Yeah, I'd make it happen.
I will do.
Thanks, Trey. Appreciate the calls. 1-855-450-NOAH, 855-450-6624, or you can join us in our interactive mumble room, mumble.jupiterbroadcasting.org. Brandon did that. Hey, Brandon, welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hey, good to be back.
Hey, man. How is, I heard you're going to be in my neck of the woods. That's what a little birdie told me.
Yeah, that's right. Hopefully I'll be up in Minneapolis first week of November.
Okay.
So.
Well, oh my gosh. Oh, this is going to be too funny. Hey, Brad, what's going on?
So I'm a moron.
Yeah. How's it going?
You what?
How's it going, man?
I good. So apparently I'm a moron.
Yeah, well.
I figured out what was going on.
Yeah. So maybe I'll. So maybe I can. Oh no, you haven't figured out what's going on. Hey, Brad, maybe look at your clock and maybe I could give you a call back a little bit later.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's no big deal. I won't be able to make it out there tonight, so we'll just give me a shout.
Okay, sounds good, dude. I don't think he did figure it out. Sorry about that. That guy should know better. When he does, it's gonna be pretty funny. Anyway, yeah. So what I was gonna say was you'll be back out there in November. I will. I'll make a trip out to Minneapolis. And I'll come hang out, just for you. And in fact, I'm not sure if we can arrange this or if we can make the timing work. But we want to do our 100th episode from Minneapolis, St. Paul, and that's going to come up in 10 short episodes. So if we do some specials in between here and there, we might be able to facilitate it. I don't know exactly how much time you have, but maybe we can schedule that and we can have a big old party, invite a bunch of people. But totally up to you. Anyway, you wanted to make a comment about password managers, and this show has gotten drug off the rails like 6 times today.
Yeah, no worries. So on the password manager, one of the things I'm looking at implementing is Bitwarden. So the reason why I'm looking at Bitwarden, so they have the hosted solution, but they also have an on-prem that you can implement. But what's really cool about it is it can interact with your with like Active Directory or LDAP, so you can actually have that back end, and then you can share passwords between people. So that's one of the things I'm looking at implementing at my new company. So it's for managing passwords for the environments I'm implementing.
Awesome. Yeah, so Bitwarden is what I use personally. I use the self-hosted version, but Bitwarden is what I'm using personally for password managers. The issue that I have with Bitwarden is there does not seem to be, and maybe I'm wrong about this, maybe you'll correct me, it's okay if you do, but I haven't seen any sort of team settings on here. It seems like I'd either have to give the master password. Oh, nope, I lied. Share your vault right here. Huh.
Yeah,
that's
so
new.
you can do sharing. What's cool about it is you can also do the that's been there for a while. So I use the hosted Bitwarden to share passwords with my wife, and makes it really easy. I think it's pretty cool. The only problem I have with it is you need to use Microsoft SQL Server, but it runs on Linux, so
right.
All so much the better. So.
Yeah, I've been a huge fan of Bitwarden. In fact, anytime I see somebody using LastPass, I'm like, hey, you're using old tech. You should go ahead and upgrade and get with 2018 and switch over to Bitwarden. The thing is, Brandon, and this is what I don't understand. I get it, right? If there's a self-hosted solution and the proprietary thing, I get it. If some people are like, well, I don't want the overhead, right? I can understand that. But can anybody out there give me a reason of why someone would use LastPass over Bitwarden? Because Bitwarden has feature by feature everything that LastPass has, and they offer it as a hosted solution for free. So it's not like you pay for anything if you don't want to, or you can self-host. I haven't quite figured out what how LastPass is still so popular.
Yeah, I don't know either. Well, I never used LastPass for password management. I was using pass, the command line Unix password manager, but which just used GPG underneath the covers. In fact, I still use it, but I needed something that my wife could use. So Bitwarden really fit the bill because there's that pretty UI, but of course there's also there's also a CLI for it, so I don't lose anything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for bringing some attention to Bitwarden. Absolutely a fantastic project, a huge, huge, huge fan of mine. And also, have you played with the multipass?
Not yet.
So, for those of you who don't know, if you haven't heard me talk about it, it is it's also another fantastic password manager. The multipass is a device that is a hardware password manager. It uses a smart card to encrypt or decrypt your passwords, but it will allow you to either access your password manager as a built-in, Firefox or Chrome plugin, or you can actually have it spit out your passwords in keyboard form. So, for example, when you're authenticating into DigitalOcean, for example, and you're using their on-screen console, or if you're authenticating into IPMI, and you can't use the copy-paste function because it's remotely controlling and all those kinds of things. Multipass, M-U-L-T-I, or M-O-O-L-T-I, the multipass will allow you to emulate a keyboard and enter a password. So it's another fantastic option to look at. Password managers are great, and there's a lot of really cool ones out there. Thanks, Brandon, for joining the show. We'll get you back soon.
Yep. See you later.
Thanks, man. We'll and make sure to let me know when you're in Minneapolis. I'd love to get together with you. If anybody else could interrupt the show at some point, that would be really great. It's like my phones didn't work, my headphones weren't working at the very beginning of the program. I got interrupted by 2 different calls. Oh my gosh. Anyway, 1-855-450-NOAH, 855-450-6624. So Oslo, Minnesota, got a call from the owner of a car dealership, and he said, we would like to upgrade our security cameras. We would like to go to IP cameras. That we want them to record everywhere. We want them to flag motion. We want 1080p video. We want it all to be managed from a web browser because, we'd like to be able to get to it from any device at any time. All of those things. They wanted good mobile support, and, they wanted push alerts when something happens. All of these really cool things. And so we went out and I did a site survey, and the project was massive. Spanned probably, I don't know, maybe 2.5 miles-ish, somewhere in there. I think maybe not quite that far. Maybe like a mile and a half. I'm not sure what it was from one end to the other. It was really far. It was far enough that we had to drive from one place to another. And we had to get cameras all over the place. And the issue was there were certain places where it was just too far. It was just not physically possible to run a wire. And there was no internet. Like they have car lots because they do such a good job at their business. This is the place that you want to buy a car from. They told me, I found out when I was there on Friday, the name of the place is Dulster Motors. I was there on Friday, and one of the guys told me that they have people that come as far as Arizona that drive here just to buy cars from these guys because they do such an amazing job. They treat people so well, and they give them such a good deal on their vehicles. And the customer service is through the roof, and I saw that firsthand. And I've actually bought, before they were a customer, I've actually bought every new car I've ever bought, I've bought from Dulster Motors, and they've been fantastic. But we're doing the site survey, and it's like, man, this is a big job. And the other thing is, I personally, up until recently, have not had a lot of experience with IP radios. And so if you're not familiar with IP radios, it's essentially 2 access points, but they're very, very powerful, and they're very, very directional. And you can shoot up to 17 kilometers. So I don't know what that is. I don't know what the monkey math is on that for us Americans, but it's a long, long way more than we needed to go. And as I'm looking at about how we're going to put these IP radios and get signals out to these lampposts, because they have these lots in the middle of nowhere, because they just have so many cars, because they're so high volume, they want to keep cameras on these cars, but there's no way to get internet out there. So I called up a good friend of mine, Mr. Chris DeLuca. Chris DeLuca is a network engineer from West Virginia, works for Putnam County Schools, and is willing to do anything to help kids and to get them on Linux. And so one of the things that he did was he set up a broadcasting system based on OBS on Linux so that he could get these kids to do their morning announcements. I actually drove out to West Virginia. We did a segment with him. It was a grand time, and got to know him and his family pretty well, and realized pretty early on that this guy really knows his stuff when it comes to networking and when it comes to specifically IP radios. And he actually had like a museum farm thing. They called him up and said, we want to do this thing. And he said, I can set that up with IP radios. And when he told me about the project, I thought, man, that is that takes some skill to get that to work. And, he's very modest, which is why I have him on hold, because he can't defend himself. But so I called him up. I said, I'll pay X amount of money. I want to fly you out here. I want you to stay here for a couple days, and I want you to work your butt off and get all of these radios installed. And he said, yeah, I'd be willing to do that. So we flew him out here, and well, I'll get his opinion here in a second, but I think he got a front row seat to why I don't answer telegrams, because I stay pretty busy. Hey, Chris, welcome to the Ask Noah Show. Uh-oh.
Am I on?
Yeah, you're on. That's when I say, Chris, welcome to the Ask Noah Show. That's your cue.
All I heard was Ask Noah Show. I'm going to derail this and start by saying that Brad Schmidt guy, we need to fire him.
Here's the truth. The truth is, if I was actually upset about it, I would have not answered the call. It's too funny that, because he should know. Like, there's only one show I do every single week at the same time, and this is it. And he knows, because he's in here and has to switch everything on Mondays at 10 a.m. when he does his show. So it's just kind of funny. And then when I was talking to him on the phone, just the way that on-air talent talk, it's different than the way that we talk when we're off the air a little bit. Like we just use a different vernacular, and we use a different vocal style. Those are all things that I would think he would pick up on. And I don't know that he ever did. I think he was thinking about something else, because him and I are meeting up later, or we were going to meet up later tonight. Sounds like he called to cancel. But yeah, no. Everybody give Brad a hard time on Monday at 10 a.m. Call his show and give him a hard time.
I'm gonna call in, and I'm gonna tell him he needs to be fired, just like the weatherman. So.
Exactly. One of the things that here's the thing. The cool thing about podcasting, though, Brad can't be fired. He'd have to fire himself, because he doesn't work for anybody but himself.
No, that's true. That's true. So yes, I can attest to Noah has little to no time to, let alone look at his phone, or even answer telegrams. And now I have a larger respect, and I will just telegram you more often if you don't answer me.
Yeah, well, it doesn't hurt anything. You and I think at the worst stretch of the week, I think we worked for 24 hours straight.
Yes.
Yeah, just shy of that. We left the house at 7:30, and we pulled back into the driveway. You staying with me? We pulled back into the driveway at 7:30. So it was basically 24, and that was the home stretch. And we thought we were done. And I think I telegrammed you about this earlier, Chris. But we missed. There was one camera that they didn't tell us about that we had to do. So in addition to the two that we knew we didn't get done, that I had to go back and do, there's actually a third one. And it's at a really pain in the butt location.
Wonderful.
So, yeah, it was in pain. But
I was just gonna say I'm glad I'm home. I can't see it from Charleston.
Yeah, that was inside a little inside baseball there. Every time I would ask his opinion on something, he started out by saying, "Your client, so you tell me what you want to do." And I said, "No, listen, you have more experience with this particular thing, and you're a very knowledgeable and capable IT guy. I want your opinion. What do you think we should do? Because sometimes just hearing what somebody else would do will tell me why they're wrong, and then I'll tell you why I want to do it a different way." And the answer he started to give me was, "Well, what you're suggesting will look great from West Virginia," which was translation, I don't care what we do. I just want to get done because my back hurts and you've kept me up for 24 hours.
I believe sleep deprivation and dozens and dozens and dozens of up and down a 30-foot ladder kind of played into that answer a little bit, but yes.
Yeah. Well, that was the other thing too. Chris doesn't like heights apparently, because we put him up. He was on top of a 50-foot telephone pole that didn't have any telephone wire on it. And he said it was a little uncomfortable swaying back and to and fro.
Yes, it was. The wind was there was a lot of wind, and it was a lot colder than we had expected, but
so
yes, it was a good time.
It was a good time. And the thing is, all things considered, every project, of course I opened my mouth too soon, but every project has a gotcha, right? Like every project you go through, and you can always point to a project and say, that was the hardest part right there. That was the one thing that really drove us nuts. And the funniest thing, we got through all of the stuff that should have been hard. The IP radios, it took a little bit longer because it was, what was it, Chris? 19 degrees above zero? 16 at the coldest?
Yes, I believe it got, well, I think it got 14 at night, and it warmed up was very overcast. It might have gotten 20 during the day, but it was still cold.
And to be clear, we worked at night, so it's not like that's, we were at home in bed or whatever. But so it was cold, and that just slowed everything down because your hands physically don't work as well when it's 14 degrees. And Chris left, what'd you say it was when you left, 80 degrees in West Virginia?
Honestly, the day I left, it was 91.
Yeah, so it was a little bit of a weather shock. But so all of the stuff that should have been hard, mounting those radios, it took a little bit longer than we thought, but we didn't really run into any problems. The stupidest thing is what hung us up, and this was at 20. We were up for 24. We were probably up for more than 24 hours because we'd been working for 24 hours. But we the last little bit, there was a shop that was too far away for us to shoot a radio reliably, and so we had a second WAN connection, and we did some configuration with the routers and all of that to get the two sites connected. And all we needed to do was tell these cameras to look through this particular network path to get to this to get to the DVR. And for some reason, my 26-hour awake brain could not problem solve, and we eventually, like, Chris is sitting there and he's like, just send the feeds unencrypted. Who cares anymore? Let's just get it done. And I'm like, no, it's all right. I'll come back. So we get in the car and we drive home, and we both go to bed. And I think I slept for 3 hours, maybe 4, and I just couldn't sleep anymore. I'm like, I got to go back and figure it out. And I wake up I'm in that hazy state in between sleep and awake, and I figure out, I'm like, this is the problem. I know what the problem is. And the issue was, which I figured out in my sleep, the other cameras that we had adopted remotely had newer firmware on them. And so I surmised that, and there was also some weird issues with the web interface on the cameras because of the older firmware. And I thought, that's probably a problematic firmware, and the other ones we know we adopted remotely, but that was because they had newer firmware. I'll bet you if I take them and upgrade the firmware, they will adopt remotely. And sure enough, climbed up my own 30-foot pole, pulled the cameras down, updated the firmware, plugged them back in. Bob's your uncle. It worked. And then we went home, and we ate some burgers and then went home.
Yes.
You had a question. I'm sorry. I kind of derailed it because people were really wanting an update. So I just wanted to update that it was a fun job. We installed a crud ton of cameras, but it was fun, and we had a good time.
No, absolutely. The question I actually had was about Virtual Machine Manager.
Okay.
Because, as you were speaking earlier, I'm trying to get OS Ticket installed because I think it's I think it's the way to go, like you said, and I would love to have my own knowledge base.
Yeah.
So my question is, why when I use Virtual Machine Manager on another computer to remotely connect to a QEMU KVM server, I log in to the server and it asks for my password. When I try to open a VM, it asks me for my password 10 times, and I have to keep typing it.
Yeah.
Long about time number 7, the screen actually comes into view, but it still asks me 3 more times for my password.
Frankly, I'm surprised it ever lets you in. I didn't know if you entered it enough times it would connect. Here's the thing. You apparently have a higher tolerance for ping pong than I do, because when that happened to me, I let it go like 3 times, and I was like, I'm done now. I'm going to figure out what's wrong with this. The reason is because there is a plugin missing, and the plugin is called OpenSSH-AskPass. And I'll have a link for you in the show notes. But essentially, what you do is, if the error message should say, if you read it, it should say you need to install OpenSSH or similar to connect to this host. And essentially, yeah, you just install
it. Never kicks back. It never kicks back an error message.
Really, it just keeps bouncing back, huh?
Keeps asking for just keeps popping up.
Here's the other possibility. The other possibility, actually, now that you're describing it, I'll bet you this is the problem. Go into preferences, and under new VM, under the new VM tab, change the graphics to VNC. From, I think it should be, I think the default is Spice. Change it to VNC, and that will fix that problem.
Really?
Yep, I'm 99% sure if it's the problem I'm thinking of. And here's the other thing too. I mean, this is kind of a cop out for the podcast, but you have the bat line, so I mean, you can call me on my cell phone, and I'll help you. But what I mean to say is, give me a call back next week if that doesn't work, and I'd be happy to help you. But I'll bet you a burger at the Nook, since that's your favorite place. that OpenSSH AskPass, or I'm sorry, that changing that display server to VNC on create new VM will fix that. And if that doesn't fix it, install OpenSSH.AskPass.
I'm doing it now. I will try it.
Okay.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yep. Let me know. 1-855-450-NOAH, 855-450-6624. The email live@asknoahshow.com. Some of you know that I have been getting more and more into radio lately. Absolutely fell in love with this industry. Started the Ask Noah Show and wanted to promote it locally, and started working for a small LPFM and got hired by a very large broadcast organization. They have the third largest radio station in the state in Grand Forks, and they have a ton of stations all around the country. And so I work from time to time, part-time, filling in on various stations when I can. There a lot more often than I ever thought I would be when I first started. But this week I have it's a full docket the rest of the week on other people's shows. So I wanted to just give you a brief rundown. If you like what we do here and you want to hear it in a slightly different facet, there's a number of ways to get it. So starting back on Monday, Brad Schmidt, the guy who called us in the middle of the program, who phone bombed the show, does a political show every Mondays at 10 a.m. Central, and we actually pick up his stream and restream it at AskNoahShow.com. But you can find the full show at theschmidtshow.com, or you can download it at podcast.theschmidtshow.com. And we'll have a link for that in the show notes too. But I joined him on Monday. We talked guns. So if you're interested in guns and firearms and self-defense, he came into a situation where he almost had to kill somebody. And so we discussed the ramifications of that and the implications of that. It was a pretty cool discussion. So make sure to check that out. I joined him for that discussion. It was a good time. Obviously, Ask Noah Show was today. Wednesday, I'll be on 1310 AM, 107.9 FM on KNOX on Wednesday from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Central Time. By the way, all of this will be streamed at AskNoahShow.com. Until I am told otherwise, anytime I have an air shift at one of these stations, I restream it on AskNoahShow.com, mostly so I can record it for my own personal collection, but it just means that you can listen to it too. Thursday, from 9 to 11, I'll be in St. Paul, which is outside of Minneapolis, 9 to 11 on KNSI, and then that afternoon I will be on 1310 KNOX from 1 to 3. And Friday, I will also be on KNOX from 1 to 3. So I'll be doing a lot of radio this week. Oh, and then Friday I will be on Destination Linux. So if politics isn't your thing and sweet Linux is your thing, then join me on Destination Linux. So check that out. There's a bunch of really cool people that really love Linux. My good friend Michael Tennell from Tux Digital is now kind of spearheading that show, and so he's carrying the torch forward, and he gave me a call this week and said, hey, we'd love to have you on, so I'm going to guest host with them, and so I'll be talking politics the first half of the week, and Linux the latter half of the week. So all in all, I think I've got, I don't know, when I added it up, I think I'll be on the air for like 10 hours for the whole week, so it'll be 10 hours airtime is a lot of time to fill, but really, really, really have enjoyed working with Leighton Broadcasting and the entire crew out there. Get to work with Brad out there too, which is pretty fun. In fact, one of the things that him and I are going to do is they bought like $20,000 worth of broadcasting equipment, and they called me up and they went, hey, you know how to install this stuff, right? I said, yeah. They go, oh, okay, because our engineer is in St. Paul, and he's not scheduled to come for a trip, so can you come install it? I said, sure, I would love to. And so I'm going to go over there, I'm going to order a pizza, and I'm going to go and play with some really, really expensive stuff. And I'm not sure because I didn't actually listen to the phone call, but I think Brad may join me or Brad may not join me, and time will tell. I want to just take a second to just thank everybody who listens to the Ask Noah Show. Really, really appreciate it when we see the download numbers go up, when I see the kind comments that come in on the email, live at AskNoahShow.com. It really, really means something. And of course, AskNoahShow.com/better. We're always taking your suggestions on how we can improve the show, how we can make the show better. I'd invite you to follow us on Twitter. You can get live, up-to-date information. Follow us at Ask Noah Show. Also, make sure to check out our YouTube channel. Right now, there's not a lot of videos on there, but like when we were doing the WISP, we actually took a bunch of video clips, and we're going to compile those into an edited product that we're going to put up on the Ask Noah Show YouTube channel. And so check that out, as well as we're going to feature a Linux guy that did a tiny house and built it out with a bunch of really cool networking gear. All that on the YouTube Ask Noah channel. Huge thanks to Simon Quigley for filling in with Call Screener. We'll be back next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central, AskNoahShow.com.